Welcome to the Sharkpreneur podcast with Kevin Harrington and Seth Greene. Kevin Harrington is the inventor of the infomercial, one of the original sharks from the hit TV show Shark Tank, and has generated over $5 billion in TV and digital direct response sales. Seth Greene is the world's first trusted authority on cutting-edge direct response marketing, a best-selling author, and the only 3-time Marketer of the Year nominee. On the podcast, Kevin and Seth interview Sharkpreneurs who share straight talk on what it takes to explode your business.
49 faces looked to him in triumph. Over the last 12 months, they had each taken turns and promoted his business for a week at a time, driving over $987,342 in revenue. What if you had a network of 50 centers of influence who promoted your business every week for a year? Grab your copy of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, The Ultimate Guide to Growing Your Business with a Podcast, at 33% off the Amazon price by going to ultimatepodcastbook.com. Again, that website for 33% off the Amazon price is ultimatepodcastbook.com. Welcome to the podcast. This is your host, Seth Greene. Today I have the good fortune to be joined by Nate Lenz from Powered by Concurrent.com. They empower advisors like us to elevate their clients' financial futures. Nate, thanks so much for joining us.
Happy to be here, Seth.
Happy to have you. Let's go back in time a little bit. How did you get started?
Yeah, I actually got my start in the industry on the practice management, business consulting side of the house. So I started at Raymond James, working within their independent broker-dealer channel, within the regional management team structure, then went on to work within their succession and acquisitions group. I actually applied for the director role, I think at the ripe age of 23. They told me I didn't have enough experience and ended up pairing me up with a guy who had 15 years in, Big Four public accounting. And so was able to learn a ton about valuation and deal structure on transacting in the independent wealth space. And ultimately he moved on to another position. So by 26, I got to take the helm because I think I was the only person left in the building that had experience in that area. So, got the chance to grow up pretty quickly in that world. In 2016, started a consulting business, INA Consulting, which is, if you're familiar with the space, a cross between like an FP Transitions and an external recruiting firm, really working with advisors, primarily on the buy side, who were looking to grow through strategic acquisition and recruiting. And I came up with a super convoluted pricing structure that included, upfront retainers and success fees and stock appreciation rights. Frankly, I'm surprised I had any clients coming out of that time frame. But when people ask me about how Concurrent got started, I always love that clip art of like the entrepreneur's journey, right? And it's everyone expectations versus reality. It's going to be this nice, upward trajectory and linear line. And reality is, you fall off a cliff, you swim across some shark infested waters, you have a little bit of success, you fall off another cliff. I think my story definitely embodies that background. And after starting the consulting business, we got about 6-8 months in and recognized pretty quickly that a lot of the clients that we were working with who aspired to build aggregator models within the independent wealth space or super OSJ models, again, many of them had great individual expertise in different areas. They had great propensity to source leads and opportunities, but at the end of the day, for them to invest in the infrastructure that they would need to really build something scalable would have been cost prohibitive. And that's really where the idea for Concurrent was born. And this is back in, late 2016, early 2017.
All right. And the longer version of this story could be in a book somewhere, I'm sure, if it's not already.
It's not yet. It's not yet.
I hear it yet, though. We could talk about that. We'll have you back when the book comes out. Awesome. So how did that come? I see where the genesis came from. Talk about the evolution along the way.
Absolutely. So, again, going back to that original idea, the concept was let's jointly invest in a shared infrastructure. Let's scale the scalable, but let's preserve each firm's independence and autonomy. So we get the pricing power and service power that comes with being part of a larger organization, but at the same time, we preserve and harness that entrepreneurial drive, right? Which is what fuels most of the individuals in this space. And, from that point, we hit the ground running. We ultimately got the structure approved. We originally were building it as a super OSJ on the Raymond James platform. What I failed to mention is that at that initial table, we had 9 firms, 9 became 8. 8 then became 5 a couple months later. We ended up buying out 2 partners a couple of years later. So we certainly went through the scraped knees and bloodied elbows of how do you build an organization with that many cooks in the kitchen, and really it took us some time to get it dialed in. But 2018, 2019, we hit our stride. We started to have some real success onboarding new teams within the organization. And ultimately, if we fast forward to 2022, that is when we decided to launch the RIA. And so, after thriving as an OSJ, it was time to enter the open ocean, so to speak, of independence. And so we launched the RIA in late 2022 and have been operating in that capacity ever since. High level today, we just crossed 13 billion in assets under management. We've got another 14 billion of assets under advisement in our corporate retirement plan business. So that's an area of strategic importance. And we've got about 72 teams operating around the country that are leveraging the Concurrent platform, but ultimately flying under their own flag and under their own brand, really leveraging us for middle and back office services, so they can spend their time focused on what matters most, which is their clients.
That is absolutely incredible and astronomical growth. So you did get some of the hockey stick eventually. It just took a little while. What does it currently look like for an RIA to work with you now? What are some of the benefits that you provide? Why are they coming on board at Concurrent at such a high level?
Yeah, absolutely. And we kind of hit the hockey stick, part of the curve twice, right? So we hit it as an OSJ, and then ultimately, in our separation from Raymond James and our launch of the RIA, kind of took a step back to take 2 steps forward. And that could be another book in terms of how that ultimately, transpired. But I do think that, when a firm comes to us today, the way that we position ourselves in the market is we're a platform for and strategic investor in independent wealth firms. And really both elements of our value prop are meant to be looked at on their own merits. So our core business is being that platform provider. So whether it's compliance, operations, technology, finance, billing, right? Providing access to an open architecture investment platform, financial planning support, virtual admin, right? We are really there to serve as the back and middle office to create capacity for them and to give them access to our scale while preserving their independence. Now, on the strategic investor side of things, right, we also we took on a capital partner ourselves back in 2021. And really the conversations transpired, a few years earlier than that. So Merchant Wealth Partners is our capital partner. They are a minority investor in our business. And what we leveraged that capital to do was to begin making minority investments of our own. So starting back in 2021, we started to take minority equity stakes in the firms that were affiliated with us at their option, where we would acquire a small equity stake in their business. They would get cash and equity in our business. They also get a tag along right in any future monetization. So the concept behind that is how can we create a mechanism by which to put capital into these businesses to help them de-risk, to help them fuel the next chapter of growth, to help them facilitate succession. We want to come alongside them and be a capital provider while also supporting them on the platform side where it makes sense. And since then, we've even expanded to making investments in third-party RIAs that are not on our ADV. We think that's an area that we can see some significant growth over the coming years.
All right, so let me see if I'm tracking all of this correctly.
Oh.
Because you got your finger in a lot of pies. I love it. So you are your own RIA, 13 billion AUM. You are a platform, so I can be an RIA with you, have everything with you, as opposed to going to build it all out myself. And you're almost like a mini RIA PE firm investing in both your RIAs under your umbrella and other RIAs off the platform. Did I get that all right?
I would say 1 and 3 are the primary focus. As a result of 3, right? As a result of investing in RIAs, we are also supporting their business, giving them access to different vendor relationships, supporting them from a compliance perspective in more of an outsourced consulting capacity. But the key element of that is it starts with that minority investment. So I wouldn't say that we're competing with the dynasties, the true independences of the world that are really working as a service provider to other RIAs. More so, we will act in that capacity if we're partnered with them. But the core of our business today is really I'll call it the affiliate model, the advisors that sit on our ADV that we're ultimately serving and supporting from a back and middle office standpoint.
How are you attracting those RIAs at such a high level?
Yeah. And, historically speaking, our business was really built on breakaways. And so we had a tremendous amount of success in the early years, moving advisors out of the wirehouse, right? And that was probably 80 to 90% of the teams that joined us came out of the Morgan Stanleys, Merrill Lynch's, UBS's, right? Wells Fargo's of the world. Since launching the RIA, we've really seen the mix shift change where we still see maybe 30 to 40% wirehouse advisors that are breaking away. We speak that language pretty well, but we're also now seeing a large uptick in advisors leaving independent broker dealers, right? The Raymond Jameses, the LPLs, the Cambridges and Commonwealth, of the world for obvious reasons, right? Some catalysts driving some of those events. But then we're also seeing a high occurrence of existing RIAs that, or IARs that are leaving RIAs or RIAs that want to ultimately roll down their registration to plug in. And that's where that, call it mini PE shop investor in RIAs really came from. Is we started to see a large number of those firms that, loved our story, loved our value proposition. But at the end of the day, still had legacy vendor relationships that were in place. And it would have been difficult for them to roll down their ADV immediately. And so one way that we can kick that relationship off is by making an investment, coming alongside of them with a heavy consultative process to understand what they're doing, and then over time methodically work to integrate different parts of the business if and where it makes sense.
You mentioned the three letters, so let's go there. How do you prevent yourself from getting acquired by LPL?
Sorry, Seth, it cut out there for a second. What was that last thing?
I said, you mentioned the three letters. How do we prevent you from getting acquired by LPL along with everybody else?
Yeah, well, coming out of the independent broker dealer world, right? I do think we have a tremendous amount of experience in that space. We had a tremendous amount of success in that space. And so we understand how to be able to wield that combined value proposition of, access to an independent BD's balance sheet, fully integrated offerings, and then ultimately pair it with our minority investment strategy. That being said, what the independent broker dealer space, I think, lacks is that ability really to separate execution from advice and to sit on the same side of the table as the client and to be able to be objective. And when I think about the future of the space, what we talk about all the time is it being, independent, not just in 1099 versus W-2, but in terms of objectivity of advice, being able to move across platforms for the client's benefit. And so I would not ever envision us taking a step backwards in that regard. We also talk a lot about advisor centricity in our world, which is that clients are going to gravitate towards advisors because they're like-minded, they're best equipped to serve their niche, they share their core values, right? And so we feel like it would be doing a disservice to disintermediate them, right, from their client. Not that LPL does that, but I think if you look at a lot of the other larger scale, roll-up or aggregator models, it's very much, put on the fatigue, salute the flag. And in a lot of ways, I think you've seen an assault on entrepreneurship in our space. And so, we look at ourselves as a haven for entrepreneurs where we want to celebrate that, differentiation, diversity, right, that each of those individual firms can bring to the table and prop that up and help support them in further differentiating themselves from the market. So I think from our standpoint, we've reached the last stop on the train. I don't see us, going back a station, so to speak, because I do think it would be antithetical to a lot of those kind of core founding principles that have gotten us to where we are in the first place.
Your passion is obvious. What do you like about what you're doing?
It's fun. So, growing up in the consulting side of things, right? I still love to nerd out a little bit and get deep in the weeds on whether it's helping an advisor with building out a comp plan for a junior advisor or building out a path to equity ownership or working on an M&A transaction. I feel like I need to get my fill, right, of doing those things on a regular basis. So I think it's, I love what I do. I love being able to, really make an impact in someone's business and being able to bring a unique skill set that might not be, their first nature, right? Because they've built phenomenal businesses by serving clients really well. If we can come and solve for some of the business side of the business functions, we think that combination can be really powerful in helping them achieve their goals and objectives. So I think that's what gets me up every morning. But I'm a student of the game. I've loved the challenge of, now we have over 300 individuals in total across our organization, which includes the advisors, their support staff, as well as our home office team. We have 65 in the home office as well. So that's been a new challenge, right? Of understanding how to motivate people and how to develop individuals and attract high caliber talent and, make sure that we're not, steering the ship into an iceberg. So it's been a welcome challenge to get out of the practitioner seat and to get into more of a leadership role over the last, call it 10 years or so. But it's a new challenge every day. And that's what I love about this space.
Awesome. I can totally relate to that. Well, we know your time is incredibly valuable. We greatly appreciate you spending some of it with us. For our folks watching or listening who are interested in learning more about the offerings, where is the best place for them to go to learn more about you and Concurrent?
Absolutely. So poweredbyconcurrent.com is the website. Tremendous amount of information there. We'd love for you to get in contact with us. Also, our company LinkedIn page, as well as my individual LinkedIn page. If you just search for Nate Lenz Concurrent, you will find it.
Awesome. This has been Seth Greene for the RIA podcast with Nate Lenz of Concurrent. Thank you all for watching or listening, and we will talk to you or see you next time.
Why do so many businesses struggle while others seem to explode overnight? Do you wish you had the secret to this type of exponential growth? Now, I've scaled more than 20 businesses to over $100 million, and it's not just luck. In my new book with Mark Tim, Mentor to Millions, you'll learn the repeatable framework I use in all my business ventures for massive success. Order at kevinmentor.com and get over $1,000 in bonuses. Head to kevinmentor.com.